Chapter 51. Luan, how can you walk on water? After checking that Luan and Ingrid weren't injured, Mara patted her chest and sighed with relief. I'm glad you two are well. I thought you were hurt. Okay. Go take a shower and then you two will tell me what happened. Yes, Mom. I'll tell you everything as soon as I take a shower and change clothes, Luan said frankly. Luan went up the stairs with Ingrid. His room had a bathroom, so he used that one. Ingrid, on the other hand, went to the bathroom on the second floor, which was bigger. Arriving in his bathroom, Luan took off all his clothes and turned on the shower. At first, he removed the seawater with hot water. Then, he took the liquid soap and started rubbing his body, washing off the dried blood. To make it easier, he used his chi together with the water to help detach the dried blood from his skin. Ingrid, on the other hand, had an easier time of things, since she managed to concentrate while being alone in the bath and made the blood come out under her control. Asterisk. Ingrid was feeling an indescribable sensation when she returned. She felt very powerful and the blood that circulated in her veins seemed more potent and gave her a good feeling. From examining her body, Ingrid noticed when she took a shower and cleaned her skin, that she made herself more beautiful again. It was as if her skin had become more nourished, giving it an air of youth and beauty. Ingrid, in front of the mirror, bit the thumb on her left hand and blood threatened to come out, but she controlled it and made it take the shape of a little ballerina who started dancing. She then made the blood return to her finger and closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, the wound had already closed. This is very magical. Ingrid smiled with satisfaction, then she put on a firm expression, encouraging herself to train and stay strong. Still naked, she started dressing in the bathroom with sexy red lingerie, then wore gym pants and a navy blue t-shirt and tied her hair in a high ponytail. After leaving, she came across Luan. Luan wore black sweatpants, gray sports shoes, and a gray tank regatta. His hair was a little messy to the right, which gave him a relaxed look. Luan looked at her, dumbfounded for a few seconds without saying anything. This made Ingrid uneasy. What is it? Ingrid snorted out of shyness. Nothing. Let's go down. Luan turned and left. Quote. Ingrid stamped her foot in protest, not understanding anything, and went down the stairs right behind Luan. Downstairs in the dining room, Katharina, Christina, and Mara were eating breakfast. When Luan and Ingrid arrived, they all looked at the two briefly but continued to eat. Sit down and eat first. We can talk later, Mara said as she looked at the two. Luan just nodded and sat down next to Christina and started eating bread with ham and cheese. Thanks. Ingrid thanked him, sitting next to Luan and Katharina. Mara said suddenly, Luan, after we've talked about what happened to you and Ingrid, let's go to the study room. I want to show you the projects and the proposal made by the company. I'll try to help you as much as possible until you get used to it. Thank you, Mom. I already intended to ask for your help and study the projects and proposals, Luan said with a slight smile. Although he hadn't slept since yesterday, he didn't feel tired or sleepy. This was one of the many advantages of being a cultivator. Something happened. What happened? Katharina did not fail to notice that something had happened to Luan and Ingrid. It made her curious, and she couldn't help asking. Luan finished filling a glass with tea and took a sip. He did not answer Katharina's question. Instead, he ate a piece of bread, leaving Katharina looking at him impatiently. He laughed and said, Why are you so anxious? Didn't our mother say we would talk about this later? Katharina gave up on getting any answers out of Luan and looked at Ingrid. Sensing Katharina's gaze on her, Ingrid sighed and said, It's a long conversation. There's no way to sum it up in such a short time. Katharina was a little disappointed, but she swallowed her curiosity and ate her breakfast very fast. After washing the dishes she had used, she waited for the rest to finish. Asterisk. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, Mara, Katharina, and Christina were looking at Luan and Ingrid, waiting for them to tell them what had happened to them yesterday. Mom, remember I said that something very big was going to happen in less than 4 months, right? Seeing her nod, Luan continued, Yesterday after having dinner at a restaurant with Ingrid, we went to the beach for a walk, and that's when it all happened. Luan paused deliberately and continued. A gap in space a few meters from the shore of the sea down by our property has opened up. I wanted to investigate, and Ingrid went with me, walking on top of the water until we got close, but how would I imagine that the moment the two of us approached the crack, it would start pulling Ingrid in. I pulled Ingrid with the intention of taking her away from there, but the gap expanded and came towards us, and we were pulled into the gap, appearing elsewhere, in a forest full of blood. Wow. Mara, Katharina, and Christina blew out a surprised breath. It was hard to imagine that this had happened. This is true. Katharina looked at Ingrid when asking. This all seemed too fanciful to be real. Yes, that's exactly how it happened. Ingrid nodded and added, when we arrived in this strange forest, everything seemed to be made of blood, even the trees were made of leaves of blood, and thanks to Luan, we were not submissive in a lake of blood and walked on top of the blood until we reached the dirt floor. Ah yes, how did you walk on the sea and on the blood, Luan? Mara almost forgot about it. She didn't know how her son could do something like that. Remember when I talked about chi? So, I used chi on my feet to let me step into the sea without sinking. It is something like a buoy, not unlike that. Luan explained himself briefly. He would not explain the whole process, as it would take time, and they still couldn't use chi to do something like that. Only Ingrid right now had a chance to learn how to do it. So, what else happened, Luan? Katharina loved adventure stories, and hearing that her brother and sister-in-law had an adventure in a strange, alien place, she was very excited. Wait a minute. I'll get something from the car so it will be easier to explain, Luan said and left without waiting for them to speak. After leaving the hall and going to the garage, seconds later Luan returned with a very large backpack that he had made with the skin of the bloodthirsty lion. There was dried blood all over the bag, and when he put it on the rug, his mother was about to scold him, but the words got stuck in her throat the moment Luan opened the bag and showed what was inside. My God, is that monster bones and teeth? Christina was the first to show a reaction. She was a little startled to see those huge, sharp teeth. Not exactly a monster, just some mutated animals, Luan shrugged and said nonchalantly. Katharina stared at Luan. This guy gave her one surprise after another, and she honestly was very surprised. Now, apart from his gaze and that inherent noble aura, she could no longer find even a small trace of resemblance to her memories of that ignorant and incompetent spendthrift son of a wealthy mother. Now, not only was his strength unfathomable, even his manner of speaking and expression were different. Did he change so much when he remembered his past life? Although she thought so, Katharina still felt her brother's traces, mainly the way he spoke to provoke her. What? Have you never seen a man so elegant, that you became mesmerized? Luan looked at Katharina and provoked her. Humph. Katharina snorted and said in her mind, no, he hasn't changed one bit. Keep talking. What else happened? Mara asked when she saw her son standing there in silence. Then, as you saw, we found some mutated animals. Ingrid and I killed some while trying to find our way out. Luan summed up a little of the fight against the mutated animals and continued, however, on the way we saw many birds, and knowing that up ahead there could be a powerful beast, Ingrid and I fled to a cave. In the cave, Luan continued to tell everything that happened in the cave for the next 2 hours. Mara looked at Ingrid, that brave girl, who faced great difficulties in order to be strong and receive an inheritance from a powerful being. As a woman, she could understand why Ingrid did this. She didn't want to be a deadweight, since Luan had described that he fought alone against the bloodthirsty lion. It also made Mara like this young girl even more. Katharina and Christina looked at Ingrid with admiration. They didn't dare say that either one of them could do the same. Ingrid, can you show some of your new power? Christina was curious about this. Ingrid thought about it and said, sure, no problem. In the next moment, she did the same thing she had done before in the bathroom. She bit her left thumb, and the moment the blood started to flow, she controlled the blood and made it take the shape of a ballerina and started making it dance, turn, and even stand on the tips of its toes. It was a spectacular sight and quite magical. Christina and Katharina were delighted to see this. It was just too cool. And when Ingrid brought the blood back and the wound healed, they were surprised once again. Whenever you want to use your powers, are you going to have to make yourself bleed? Mara was concerned about this. A small cut was no big deal, but what if she wanted to use more blood? No, I can also do other things as well as control some of the blood of a person I touch, Ingrid said. She still wasn't sure how many things she could do, but she knew it wasn't simple. Before Mara said anything in return, Katharina exclaimed exaggeratedly, so my sister-in-law during those days will be the most powerful. Ingrid blushed when she heard that, especially the part where she called her sister-in-law. Foolish girl, do I see what you're talking about? Mara pretended to be angry and hit her daughter on the head lightly and laughed quietly. Luan also laughed a little, as he thought it was funny. Christina, on the other hand, was more discreet. She kept her laughter hidden, turning her face. Chapter 52. Online game. After telling the whole story of what happened in the bloody forest, Luan went with his mother to the study room, while the three girls went to train. Luan, what do you think about this partnership proposal? Let me hear your opinion. Mara gave him a proposal to hire the company UOL and sell the internet provider. It's not a bad idea. However, instead of renting 3 floors of the adjacent building, I would choose to rent a warehouse or something as big as a warehouse that is capable of employing 500 employees per shift, Luan said, and then mentioned after reflecting, the proposal is good and the product is good to sell. However, I disagree with what it says in that script. It would be better to rewrite it and make it more advantageous for yourself. Oh, and if you were to do all that you said, how much do you think you would earn per month? Mara thought it was a good proposal, but she still wanted to know how much it would generate. Luan gave his analysis of the next 3 months. In the first month, with approximately 1,000 employees, 2 million. In the second month, 6 million. And in the third, 12 million. This already is factoring things such as taxes and employee payments. Wait, all that much? No, even half of that, I find difficult. Mara did not believe this easily. Of course, she knew that the product proposal was good and with a large profit margin, but it couldn't pay that much. Yes, if I used the strategy you have currently, it is obvious that it would not make that much profit in such a short time, but what if I used this? Luan took a pen and paper and started writing. After writing, he handed it to his mother. Mara started to read and her eyes shone. Yes, this is great. If you use this, it will surely sell. Calculating that per employee, it would be an average of 10 configuration devices sold per month, as the cancellation rate does not reach 20%. And yes, your forecast is right, as employees get used to the new sales script, it will only increase the company's monthly income. Of course, that's not all. It is good to highlight those who sell the most, provide rankings and higher status after certain sales benchmarks are reached, and increase the value of the products and services able to be sold. All of this will encourage employees to earn more money, yielding more money for the company, Luan said. Yes, I thought that too, Mara agreed. Okay, let's go to the next one. Luan looked at the pile of files on the table as he selected another. Mara was still lost in thought after hearing what Luan said. She only came back to herself seconds later, and asked, yes, but Luan, is your forecast only going to be applied for the next 3 months? Yes, just make a 3-month contract. Craft it to make it say something like we are testing the product, and after 3 months, it will be no longer worth continuing, Luan said nonchalantly. But why? Mara was confused, as she imagined that it was much more worthwhile to make a contract of at least 1 year. Did you forget what I said about the apocalypse? Luan looked at her and said, this would not sell after the apocalypse comes, and then, we will lose a lot if we made a 1+ year contract. Oh, that's right, I had forgotten about that. But they will still use the internet, right? Mara did not know exactly what would happen in the apocalypse, so there was no way for her to predict this as clearly as Luan did. Yes, you will still find people using the internet, but they will no longer need it. In reality, many will not, since there will be a free provider from the internet operator itself. And people will become more intelligent, so really, this is a product that will only sell now because people are still easily deceived. Luan recalled that at the beginning of the Third Awakening, it did not take even 2 months for a new type of internetwork system to be spread across the planet. It was faster and did not need the services of internet providers, since it came for free. Okay. Anyway, this was just a small proposal. Let's look at the others. Mara was more confident when she heard her son's previous analysis. She was now interested in what he would do when he took over as CEO. Of course, Luan understood that his mother was testing him practically. Before looking at these projects and proposals, explain to me a little better about this apocalypse. Mara realized that without her knowing exactly what she was going to deal with, she had no way of predicting what would happen in the future. Remember the bloody forest that I talked about earlier? Seeing his mother nod, Luan continued, when the apocalypse happens, people will gain powers. Places like the one I went with Ingrid will appear very often. Magical places, so to speak, will connect to our world, and beings of different species live in these places. Some are dangerous, others are intelligent. In short, many of them will try to enslave a good part of us and control some smaller countries, even some large countries. Wait, how do you know all this? Mara found it strange. If what he said about his memories of a past life were true, that wouldn't have meant that the same thing that happened years ago would necessarily happen again, especially because humans have developed advanced weapons, technology, even a nuclear bomb. Luan could not say that he had experienced all of this, but it was also not as if he had not foreseen this question from his mother. He said, "Mother, I understand that it is difficult to believe what I am going to say, but it is true. Now I will make a small analogy of what will happen. We humans on Earth have people who are at most at the strength of 60 ordinary men, while these living beings of different dimensions can reach upwards of 1,000 ordinary men." 1,000. Mara was scared to death. Yes. Now do you understand why I said all this? You don't have to be a genius to understand that with that sort of power, they could easily kill a president or take the family of the president of a country hostage and control the country behind the scenes. Luan, seeing that his mother was very scared, reassured her, "Of course, there will be few who have this level of power, and we humans on Earth will also be able to get stronger. However, we will be in a race against time. To understand this better, I will use a gaming reference as an example. They, the living beings from other dimensions, will start at level 10 plus, whereas we will have to start at level 1. Mara managed to calm down a little. She took a deep breath and drank some tea, but seeing that it was cold, she put it back on the table and asked, "Luan, do you know more or less how many of these living beings in other dimensions will be showing up? If you are going to calculate them all together, I would say it's around 500 million. Even Luan did not know the exact number, but he estimated that it was not far from that number. He added, "Sure, they won't be coming all at once, but that doesn't lessen the danger." I see. It's not too much or too little. If their average strength is 10 times stronger, that would be scary. Mara sighed tiredly. It was worse than she imagined. Luan looked at his mother and said, "Mother, because of what we are going to face, I also want to create something at Dimas Corporation, a game to be more precise. Tell me more about this game." Mara, knowing the seriousness of the situation they were going to face, became even more serious than before. "I want to make an online game. I already made the basic framework and I intend to start building it this month." Luan said, "Mother, I don't want our race to become slaves, so all human beings need to become stronger before the apocalypse happens. Of course, everything has a price. To play the game, people will need to spend money, but it will not cost that much. It'd be an amount that even the poorest people could pay, around 10 rias a month. How exactly can this game help someone?" Her entrepreneurial heart started to itch. If what Luan said was true, Mara knew it would make a lot of money. Each person can buy an account and create a character with the configuration of the person who will play the game. Luan explained, "There is only one class in this game, which is Cultivator. At first, the character starts at level 0 and has to train and meditate in the game and then reach level 1. Are you thinking of teaching body techniques using a game character?" Mara asked, without waiting for Luan to finish explaining. "Yes, that's why people will have to be faithful when it comes to creating the character in their own likeness. It will be revealed from the beginning that if you imitate the movements and actions of the created character, you will be able to become stronger than an ordinary person. Of course, I understand that it will not be easy for people to believe this initially, but that's where grandfather comes in." Luan did not continue to speak, noticing that his mother wanted to speak. Seeing that her son had stopped talking, she said, "You want to show this to your grandfather before going public, right?" "I agree. If the army trains using these body techniques, it would be more powerful and it would also be easier to convince the country, and even the whole world." Quote, "Yes, I believe Grandpa will listen to me. He is already retired, but he still has a lot of connections, and it would be easy for him to convince the army to test the game and see if it works," Luan said. "I think so too." Mara nodded and asked, "Are we going to continue looking at the other proposals and projects?" "Yes, we don't need to think too much about what will happen in a few months. First we will strengthen ourselves, and for that, we need a lot of money." Luan went to the table and got another proposal. Mara looked at her son's back, and enormous pride filled her heart. Chapter 53. 5-Pointed Formation. It was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Luan was studying Dimas Corporation's projects and proposals from early in the morning. Mara had doubts about Luan becoming CEO of Dimas Corporation, but now she was confident that he could make it work. Of course, she still intended to help in what ways she could. In his room, Luan was creating the bad luck pill. This pill was a pill that Luan himself invented. It was possible for Luan to make basically because of his negative chi, since in the process it was essential to be able to pull in negative energy that ends up causing bad luck to the person who ate the pill. Luan did not originally design the pill to be used by an unfortunate victim. It was something he created for himself, and of course, when he ate it, didn't have that bad luck effect, but it did help increase cultivation. However, when one of his friends from his past lifetime had eaten the pill, he was made unlucky for a few minutes, but because he had relatively high cultivation, the effect fortunately did not last that long. Luan squeezed boa constrictor blood into a silver cauldron and began to boil it using the crystal of fire energy. Turning the hydrangea leaves into powder, he placed the powder in the cauldron, followed by 200-year-old agave and blood fern leaf that he took from the bloody forest. The blood fern leaf would help to increase the effect. Before closing the lid, Luan opened his mouth and spat something white into the cauldron. This was precisely his negative chi that had been condensed into solid form. The number of ingredients he had was enough for him to create 2 pills, and that's what Luan did as he waited for the process to end. Asterisk. Ingrid, let me help you. Luan arrived in the kitchen and saw his girlfriend putting food on the table. Everything is ready. Just see if Mara, Katharina, and Christina have finished meditating, please. Ingrid turned around, wearing a pink apron, and with her beautiful blonde hair tied in a ponytail, she smiled at Luan as she spoke. Luan stared at her for a few seconds, before turning and leaving. Okay. Outside the exercise room, Luan heard laughter and voices. He went in and saw his mother and 2 sisters sitting on the floor sweaty, talking about something that seemed to be related to him, since he heard his name mentioned. Keep talking. Don't stop because of me. Luan leaned against the door with his arms crossed on his chest while he looked at his mother and sisters. Christina jumped like a cat whose tail was stepped on, and then she leaned over to Luan and said guiltily, I'm sorry, big brother. I asked mom and big sister to tell me a bit about you. Luan was not angry, and seeing little Christina feel so guilty that they were talking about him because she asked, Luan did not know whether to laugh or cry. He approached the girl and put his hand on her head and head with his hand and said, Christina, don't feel guilty about little things. I won't be cross with you just because you asked about my past. Seeing her raise her head, looking at him with her big honey-colored eyes, Luan smiled a little and added, besides being your master, I'm also your older brother. Don't be so polite to me in the future, treat me like family, and only apologize if you do something wrong. Christina's eyes were getting red, but she sniffed and didn't cry. She hugged Luan. Then she said, yes, older brother. Luan pinched her soft cheek, and said, okay, take a shower and then go down the stairs and go to the kitchen. Ingrid cooked for us. Christina nodded obediently and left shortly thereafter. She was feeling incredibly happy now. Hey, first you make her feel guilty and sad. Then you even comfort her. Tisk, tisk, brother, you are very bad Tilda. Katharina wagged her finger. Getting up, she reached out in front of him and poked his chest with her index finger while criticizing Luan for having done something bad. Luan looked down at his sister, and said, remember when we were 17 years old, stone midnight. I went to get some water and guess what I saw? Shish. Katharina was frightened and covered Luan's mouth with both her hands and said, I was wrong, okay. Oh yes, the sister-in-law made lunch, right. I'll go first. Katharina ran right away. With only himself and his mother in the room, Luan looked at Mara and asked, Mom, is everything okay with your arm and leg? Do you feel any discomfort? They are very good. It has not been a problem so far, and thanks to the technique of cultivating the body, they both have grown stronger. I think I'm 4 times stronger than before. If not, it is close to that. Looking at her son, Mara said all this with a smile. I'm glad to hear that. Luan smiled back. Asterisk. After lunch, Katharina went shopping with Ingrid and Christina. There were many things missing from the girls' daily lives, and Luan couldn't help that much. Both he and his mother had spent the whole morning studying the company's projects and proposals, so now they took the time to train. However, Luan didn't start training right away. He still wanted to create a formation and increase the chi density of heaven and earth in the gym room. Mom, before I start training, I have some preparations to make here, Luan told her. Is it that formation that you mentioned before? Mara remembered that he had talked about this. Yes, I didn't do that before because I was worried about attracting a crack if I did something very strong, but I already have all the items needed to prevent this from happening, Luan said. Okay, I'm going to wait in my room while you do this. Let me know when you're done, Luan. Smiling, Mara got up and left Luan alone. Luan went to his room, took the big stone of energy, and cut 5 pieces from it the size of a little glass ball, and then took a bone that was part of the rib of the bloodthirsty lion, and some of the lion's blood which he had kept in the small leather bag he made from the bloodthirsty lion's skin. In the gym room, Luan mixed his blood with that of the bloodthirsty lion and increased the effect when drawing the formation pentagram. It was a 5-pointed formation with 2 effects: concealment, and pulling energy from heaven and earth into it. The moment Luan placed the 5 energy stones on each end, he stuck the bone in the middle, and that was when a flash of red and white light illuminated the room. Luan muttered a few words and wrote strange symbols with his chi in the air, integrating them with the formation. Then some mysterious symbols began to appear around the room, forming something like a round dome that isolated it. The symbols seemed mystical and supernatural, and they started to spin like a turnstile around the room, and it only stopped spinning a few minutes after Luan finished murmuring strange words and writing symbols in the air that integrated into the formation. With that being ready, Luan sighed a little tiredly, and left to go grab some things left in his room and then call his mother. Chapter 54. Trauma. Luan Dimas shopping. A pink Porsche entered the mall's garage, attracting a lot of attention, not only because it was an expensive Porsche, but because of the flashy pink color. Did you like riding in my car? As soon as the car's speed slowed, Katharina, who was driving, smiled, and asked Christina and Ingrid. Yes, it is very comfortable, Ingrid replied. I liked it. It was very pleasant, Christina said with an innocent smile. Is it not? Then I'll let you drive it sometime, Tilda, Katharina said with a soft laugh. Katharina took them to the Valentino store on the 2nd floor. It was a very chic store with a large sign written, Valentino, above the entrance door, which was all made of white glass with gray illuminated by light. And behind the glass there were 3 female mannequins, one wearing a beautiful pink dress, another wearing more executive clothing, and the other wearing a short skirt with a black long-sleeved web shirt. Let's go here first. Katharina entered the store, and Christina and Ingrid immediately followed. Wow, I've never seen so many beautiful clothes. This was a feast for Christina's eyes. She saw many beautiful clothes and said excitedly. If you like any, just let me know and I'll buy them for you, Katharina said with a gentle smile. Although she thought she could easily buy cheaper clothes for her, Christina still nodded, not refusing Katharina's kindness. Katharina made Ingrid and Christina try on many clothes, and she also tried on and bought quite a few for them. I'm going to try on that dress and I'll be right back. With that said, Katharina went to the dressing room. 1 minute later, Ingrid said to Christina, I'm going to the bathroom. Do you want to go with me, or do you want to wait here? I'll wait here. I think my big sis will be back soon, Christina said sweetly. Okay, I'll be right back. Ingrid was in a bit of a rush, and ended up leaving immediately afterwards. Christina, who was now alone, found a very beautiful blue dress. She admired it for a while, but when she flipped the tag and saw the price, she sighed. She didn't want to ask her older sister to spend that much money buying clothes for her, so she intended to walk away and look at something cheaper. When Christina was about to turn around, someone spoke in a female voice, incredibly irritating. You filthy child, look what you did. You put your filthy hands on the dress I was going to buy for my daughter. How are you going to make up for it? It was a middle-aged woman who spoke. She wore heavy makeup, had brown hair and black eyes, and wore revealing clothing, showing her abundant breasts in an unobtrusive way, holding the hand of a girl around 14 to 15 years old. Although the store was large, with 2 floors, the woman's voice echoed throughout the store. This drew everyone's attention, and they looked in Christina's direction and began to murmur. And since Christina was a young girl and was alone, the murmurs were quite malicious. Christina didn't understand. She wasn't even dirty, and just touched the dress a little. So why was this woman acting like that? The woman, seeing that she had caught the attention of many people, instead of being embarrassed for making a scandal, spoke even louder. Poor girl, this place is not for people like you. Get out now. She then looked in the direction of a shop assistant and said, You there, what are you waiting for? Why did you allow a girl like this to enter the Valentino store? If she doesn't immediately leave, I won't be shopping at this store anymore. Before the saleswoman could answer, an angry voice came from behind. That's right. So go and never come back. Who dares? The woman turned and froze. I dare. Katharina looked angrily at the woman, and without realizing it, she launched a strong murderous intention towards the woman and daughter, who instantly felt weakened. My God, isn't that Katharina Dimas? Some customers recognized her. Miss Katharina. There must be some mistake. My mother. The girl who was next to the woman with large breasts and heavy makeup was able to recognize Katharina. After all, this mall belonged to the Dimas family, and in Juror Internacional, few did not know her, mainly because of her striking white hair and red eyes. The girl continued to speak, even though she was very scared and feeling weak when faced by Katharina with her murderous intent. My mother only got angry because. She pointed at Christina, blaming her. This dirty girl was touching the dress that my mother was going to buy for me and soiled the dress. That's why my mom was a little upset. Yes, that's right, Miss Katharina. The woman was terrified. She had no courage to provoke the young woman in front of her and was very frightened by the look Katharina was giving her and put the whole blame on Christina. This dirty and ignorant girl, she deserves a beating and to be forbidden to enter the store. No, she should be banned from entering Juror Dimas shopping. Katharina's eyes were drawn and her eyebrows sharpened like a sword. She approached Christina, who was silent from beginning to end. In her eyes, she was terrified, shivering over and over. This must have triggered some trauma for her to be in that state. Ingrid, who had just come back from the bathroom and saw what happened, especially the part where the woman with big breasts and heavy makeup said that to Christina, her blood boiled and her anger rose. She was a little distant, but she ran very fast towards the woman. Katharina saw that Ingrid was close to punching the woman in the face, and said in a hurry, "Wait, Ingrid. Do not do it." Although she didn't mind beating this woman, she still has her principles, and beating this woman in public would only bring temporary satisfaction. She had other plans and would not let this mother and daughter get away with saying all this and waking up some trauma in her little sister. Ingrid's eyes blinked, and she came to, but the anger in her eyes had not yet been quenched. The woman who almost got punched in the face fell to the floor on her butt, and sweated cold. The daughter was pulled by her and fell too, hitting her knees on the floor and screaming in exaggerated pain. This girl was similar to the woman, with light brown hair and dark brown eyes. Dirty, you say? Since when is my little sister a dirty girl? Katharina hugged Christina's trembling body in her arms. She said calmly and coldly, I know who you are. You are Aid's wife, owner of the recently transformed Aid Construction Company, yes. Seeing the mother and daughter pair's eyes widen in surprise, as if they didn't believe she knew that, Katharina smiled coldly. By coincidence, I saw the news that Aid Contractor now became Aid Construction and I remember seeing you beside him, all full of smiles. Well, I just wanted to say that to you. Now get out of here and never come back. No, Miss Katharina, you can't do that. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done what I did, but you can't blame me. I didn't imagine that this girl was your sister. Still without strength, sitting on the floor, the woman almost said, dirty, again, but managed to stop herself in time. Security, get these two out of here. The moment Katharina said that, her tone also became a little more aggressive. Two tall, muscular men went towards the mother and daughter pair. No, you can't. You can't do this to us. The young girl screamed. She had never felt so humiliated, but Katharina pretended to be deaf and waved Ingrid closer. Christina, it's okay. I'm here. Nothing bad is going to happen to you, Katharina said guiltily. I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. I didn't expect. I must also apologize. I ended up leaving her alone. Ingrid was feeling horrible. She didn't expect that the moment she left to go to the bathroom, something like this would happen. Even after hearing this, Christina had no reaction. Christina looks at me. Katharina put her hand on Christina's face, asking to look at her. Yes. Christina suddenly raised her head for the first time and said, looking at Katharina with her dull eyes. She then said, the dress. I didn't damage it, I swear. I know that. Seeing Christina's expression made Katharina feel miserable. Katharina's heart ached and she worried about her. I just thought it was beautiful and touched it a little to see the price. Christina added, yes, I know. Katharina was as understanding as possible, comforting her with kind words. I didn't hold it. Why did she say I held the dress? Christina's eyes did not look away from Katharina. She and her daughter are ignorant people and are the ones who are truly dirty. Big sister, am I a dirty girl? When she asked that question, it didn't look like she was talking only about the mother and daughter pair, but something she had locked deep in her heart. You are not dirty. You are so beautiful and my little sister. How can you be dirty? Don't believe that woman's words. Katharina rubbed Christina's back gently. Christina suddenly bit her lower lip and looked scared when she asked, big sister, am I going to be punished? Of course not. Why did you think you would be punished? Katharina felt her heart ache when she heard that question. But, whenever something like this happened, I was punished. Her eyes still seemed unfocused. It was as if she had gone back to the time when she lived with the Zing clan. Christina, you are my little sister. I will not punish you. Katharina sighed and said gently. Honest. Christina's eyes blinked, and she finally showed a little sparkle in her eyes. Yes, it's true. Katharina hugged Christina's small body and said softly. Thank you, big sister. Christina's voice sounded a little more lively. Do not worry, big sister. Yes, I want to see my master. I want to see my big brother. She missed him. She wanted to see him. For Christina, Luan was her safe haven. Okay, let's go back. Katharina lost total interest in continuing shopping. Christina nodded obediently and looked up. Big sister. Yes. Thank you for defending me, Christina said and looked at Ingrid. Ingrid, thank you for being angry for me. Don't worry. I will always protect you, Ingrid and Katharina said in unison. Returning, Katharina told her family everything that happened to Christina. Chapter 55. Framing someone. Christina couldn't take it anymore and ran towards Luan, hugging him tightly, rubbing her little face on his shirt. She felt safer beside him. Seeing that Christina's emotional state was not good, Luan looked at his mother to suggest that she do a certain thing to change the situation. Mara understood immediately what her son wanted, and left the room and returned seconds later, holding a black leather briefcase. From within the portfolio, Mara took out an adoption paper. She then handed it to Luan. Luan gently persuaded the girl in his arms. Christina, look at this, and read it. Christina was reluctant to part with Luan, but she still heard what he said. She held the yellow bordered paper with green streaks and saw, birth certificate, name, Christina Dimas. The moment she saw her name and saw that the last name read, Dimas, Christina's body started to shake. The tears threatened to fall from her eyes, but she forced herself not to cry and continued to read. Date of birth, June 15, 1995. Affiliation, mother, Mara Dimas. As soon as she read this, Christina hugged the birth certificate to her chest and started to cry. She was crying loudly, and she could feel sadness and happiness mixed in with her crying. For many, this was just a slip of paper, but for Christina, it was an acknowledgement, a proof that she was officially the daughter of the Dimas family, daughter of Mara Dimas and younger sister of Luan Dimas and Katharina Dimas. Seeing this, Mara couldn't stand it any longer, and hugged Christina's small body and let her cry, emptying the contents of her heart. Later, the delivery man from the Valentino store came. Although Katharina, Ingrid, and Christina left early, Katharina had bought them a lot of clothes before it all happened. On the one hand, Katharina was not very excited. On the other hand, when she took Christina and Ingrid to her room and did a parade with the clothes she bought, it made their mood better. Around 10 o'clock at night, Luan left in his green Lamborghini Urus. The Juror Internacional road at that time of day was almost always a little busy. Because of this, it took Luan a short time to arrive on the highway and drive towards Florianopolis. After 30 minutes of driving, Luan arrived close to the hospital where Leon Becker was staying. Luan parked the car 2 blocks from the hospital. That done, he walked towards the hospital and entered, hiding his presence. He had already hacked this hospital's system and knew that Leon Becker was in VIP room number 23. How did this happen? An angry voice came from inside VIP room 23. Sir, we don't know either. We just found out that their car fell off a cliff and they all died. The man's voice was low and resentful. He was the one who lost some of his men, but he still had to apologize to this arrogant man. Damn it, Adalto. You say you're a professional, but you can't even kidnap a little girl, and you even lost your men, falling off a cliff. Leon Becker's voice was loud, disregarding everything, and he didn't even seem to care if it was heard or not. After all, this was a VIP room and the sound was isolated. However, not everything in life is guaranteed 100%. With Luan's hearing, he was able to hear everything that was said, but it wasn't like he didn't know it. Leon Becker continued shouting at Adalto until the man promised a refund if the service was not completed properly next time. When Adalto left, Luan did not enter Leon Becker's VIP room, but followed the other man a little, and not. Feeling the presence of people close by, he arrived behind the man, and in a clean and fast way, twisted his neck, killing him. Since Luan's hands were surrounded by chi, his fingerprints would not be on the man's body. Luan did not intend to dispose of the evidence, he simply carried it to the janitor's office. Luan has not yet finished preparing what he had in mind for the man who wished to be known as his father. Luan used a unique ability, taking on Adalto's appearance and now looked like a middle-aged man with a shaved beard and brown hair. Luan did something to the hospital's cameras so he didn't have to avoid them and entered VIP room 23. Why are you back? Have you not heard enough of how worthless you've been up to now and want to hear more? Leon Becker said scornfully with a distorted expression when he saw Adalto enter. I forgot to deliver something to you, so I came back, Luan said, imitating Adalto's voice. Humph. What is it? Leon Becker looked at him with a superior look as he asked. This. Luan walked over to Leon and with his chi wrapped around his hand, he squeezed Leon Becker's cheeks, forcing him to open his mouth and make him swallow one of the pills Luan had prepared for him. Before Leon Becker could do anything else, Luan made him pass out. Before he left, Luan took a print of Leon Becker's fingerprints. Let's see if he can still set up something against my sister and mother, Luan murmured and then went to the janitor's office and planted the fingerprints on Adalto's neck. With all this done, Luan left the hospital without being seen and returned to his original appearance. It was as if he had never gone there in the first place. Going back to where he left his car, Luan drove the rest of the way back to Juror Internacional. Ring tilde asterisk. Picking up his cell phone, seeing that it was an unknown number, Luan frowned and answered, Who is it? Luan, it's me, Elias. A male voice came over the line. Elias, long time, no chat. By the way, why is your number different? Luan was slightly surprised to hear the voice of his good friend, Elias. I dropped my phone in the toilet and my chip stopped working. Anyway, I'm calling because I just came back from the army and I wanted to invite you out to drink and catch up, Elias said, a little awkwardly. Although Elias was a big, tall man, full of muscles, he was always clumsy, and Luan would not be surprised if he had said he accidentally flushed his phone away afterward. Okay, I'm driving now. Where do you want to meet me? Luan asked. Chapter 56. Promoted to captain. Inside the Cosmo Beach Club. Luan, you are here. For Elias, it had been a few months since they had seen each other, and he already missed his best friend a lot. For Luan, it was a matter of years, and the moment they approached, Luan gave his friend a hug and walked with him while saying, It's been a while. I'm glad you're back. Hee. It's been a long time. Elias scratched his head awkwardly. Okay, let's drink and have some snacks while we talk, Luan said and walked over to the available table. Yes, my pleasure. Elias smiled and followed Luan to the table and sat on the opposite side. Tell me, how was it in the army? Luan looked at him and asked. Well, I was promoted from first lieutenant to captain, Elias said with a proud smile. He was young and managed to become a captain in the army, that was his greatest pride. Oh, very nice. I'm proud of you, Luan said and smiled a little. Thank you. I am very happy about it. Elias said with a silly smile, but then he frowned a little and asked, why do I feel that you are different? Different? How so? Luan asked with interest. How can I say it? Elias scratched his face thoughtfully and said, your aura, and also your way of speaking and behaving, although you look the same, at the same time it looks different. Even your face looks more handsome and mature, and your body looks stronger. Are you training? Well, a lot of things happened while you were in the army, and some of those things made me change, so it's not surprising that you've noticed that I've changed. Besides, yes, I've been training, and it's very special training, Luan said calmly. If Elias knew how powerful Luan was currently. Oh yes, and that girl you like, Carol. Are you still trying to get with her? Elias made a strange expression when he asked that question. Carol, haha. Luan gave an empty laugh and said with total indifference, she means nothing to me anymore. I was a fool for having once felt something for her. Quote. Wow. Seriously. Elias found it hard to believe since Luan was obsessed with this girl before, but seeing in Luan's eyes that he was serious, Elias was happy and commented, this is good. That girl is worthless. I feel like a weight was lifted from my heart when I heard that. Elias knew how much Luan had been deluded by Carol, and it was almost impossible to break that illusion. But now knowing that Luan didn't feel anything for her anymore was, by itself, enough to make Elias, day happier. Seeing his friend had become so happy, Luan smiled. Haha, let's drink. This needs to be celebrated. Waiter, bring whiskey and snacks. Elias was very excited. He asked the waiter to bring whiskey and a portion of Little Heart, chicken hearts, pepperoni, and French fries. After that, Luan and Elias ate and drank while talking. Luan told him about how he was now dating a beautiful girl who was currently living at his house, and also told about his becoming CEO of the headquarters of Dimas Corporation. But he didn't tell Elias about cultivation or anything related to it. It was not that he did not trust Elias, it was because it was an open place, and someone could end up listening, and it was also not the right time to tell. Luan talked and drank with Elias for a long time. Luan used his chi to make the effect of the alcohol leave his body and said when he got up, "I think it's time to go." "You came by taxi." "Yes. I will take you back." "No, I haven't had enough to drink yet." Seeing Luan's stern look, Elias sighed and gave up. Before, it was he who would ask Luan to stop drinking and leave, but it seemed that today the roles had been reversed. Luan paid the bill and then helped Elias walk to the parking lot. "Luan, you drank as much as I did, but why don't you look like you drank at all?" Elias could not understand this point. "I'll tell you some other day. Now is not the right time," Luan said with a mysterious smile. This only made Elias even more curious, however, he didn't ask again. Okay. Arriving in front of the gate of Elias' house, the security of the house was at least 10 times greater than that of Luan's. That's because Elias was from a military family which valued their personal security. Recognizing Luan's car, the security guards opened the gate. Luan drove his car into the estate's garden, down the stone sidewalk toward the door of Elias' house. The mansion's lights were on, and security guards warned the occupants of Luan's arrival with Elias, and it was because of this that a beautiful middle-aged woman, wearing a simple but beautiful white dress, appeared at the door. She had long black hair and light brown eyes. Luan stopped the car and helped Elias down. "I'm fine, Luan. I can walk alone." Saying this, Elias tried to walk alone and almost fell. Luan took Elias' arm and said sarcastically, "I thought you could walk alone." I just tripped over something. It won't happen again." Elias blamed the floor, which was perfectly made and almost impossible to trip over. While holding Elias' arm, Luan used some of his chi and made some of the alcohol's effect pass. Elias, who until a moment ago saw everything spinning, was surprised, but then he walked proudly towards the woman at the door. "Mother, I'm back." "Smelly son. Stop screaming," the woman in the white dress snorted, pretending to be angry. But, deep down, she was very happy that her son came home safely after such a long time in the army. "How can this be? I am so fragrant now, unlike when I was in the battalion." Elias smelled his own clothes, and although he smelled a little alcohol, there was no bad odor. At least for him, who lived in the army, his scent seemed more pleasant now. "Stop being silly. Get in quickly, and go take a shower," his mother scolded him. Elias turned around before entering and said, "Luan, thanks for bringing me back, and congratulations again for becoming CEO. Tomorrow night, I will go to your house to talk to Aunt Mara and little sister Katharina. I'm also curious about, well, I'll see you tomorrow." Elias stopped in the middle of what he was going to say and went inside. "Good night, Aunt Olivia," Luan said as he prepared to get in the car. "Why don't you come in a bit? And did you really become CEO? I heard that before as well, but I didn't believe it at first." Olivia approached Luan with a gentle smile on her face. "Yes, Aunt. I will officially start tomorrow," Luan replied. Then his eyes became complex as he looked at Olivia. When the third awakening first happened, she suffered a lot. Remembering what happened to Olivia, it made him feel a bitter taste in his heart. As a family with great military power, she ended up being kidnapped and killed in the worst possible way by a race of barbarians from another dimension. This had a huge impact on Elias, who developed a need for revenge. In the end, he managed to kill all the barbarians who had done that to his mother, but of course, this was not able to bring his mother back, and the knot in his heart was never undone. Throughout their lives, Elias and his father blamed themselves for failing to protect Olivia. Because of that, he could only relieve the anger and loneliness of his heart by hunting the entire race of barbarians. Even Luan was unable to get him back to normal because of it, and in the end, Elias ended up becoming something without humanity and was hunted until Luan rescued him when he had already reached the Fifth Order and managed to help Elias get back at least some of his humanity. However, he was never quite the same again. This is amazing. Your aunt is very proud of you. I hope you don't let your mother down and do a good job, Olivia said with a sincere and kind smile. Thank you, Aunt. I will do my best. Luan hugged her and was kissed on the cheek by her and walked away. Hee hee. I see that you have also become more beautiful. Olivia was surprised by Luan's change, but she knew that he inherited good genes from Luan's mother, and maybe he had just become more mature and the impression she had of him improved. Aunt Olivia, you seem to get younger and more beautiful all the time, Luan said with a smile. It was not long ago that last I saw you, and now you even know to recognize the beauty of your aunt here. Olivia laughed and said, okay, I'm not going to take up much of your time. You should go back and sleep for the big day tomorrow. Aunt Olivia, yes. Luan wanted to say something, but gave up, and ended up saying, Have a good night, Aunt Olivia. I'm going now. Tell Elias to come visit me tomorrow, and if you can come along as well, it'd be even better. Okay, I'll go with Elias too. Your place tomorrow. I also miss talking to Mara, Olivia smiled and said. Asterisk. While driving his car back down the road, Luan noticed he was being followed. Luan stopped the car and saw the red Ferrari stop right behind him, and from inside the Ferrari, Wagner Hamibo got out of the car. Chapter 57. Reasons to sell. Wagner was 180 centimeters tall, with shoulder-length black hair and dark brown eyes. He was wearing a dark blue suit and tie as he walked over from his red Ferrari to Luan's vehicle. As he walked towards Luan, Wagner's gaze was full of disdain, but also envy. I knew it was you. Only you drive a car like that. As soon as Wagner Hamibo opened his mouth, he laughed coldly, full of contempt. I'm not in the mood to hear your nonsense. Just tell me why you were following me. Luan looked at Wagner and asked nonchalantly. Wagner was a little surprised. He had expected to see timidity coming from Luan, who always feared Wagner when he saw him. However, he now spoke in a bored tone of voice and in an indifferent way. I will be direct, Wagner said arrogantly. I want to buy the shares that your family has from Petrobras. My Hamibo family is willing to pay this amount. Wagner passed Luan a paper, and on the paper it showed the number of shares that Luan's mother had and the amount the Hamibo family was willing to pay. In the year 2000, Luan's mother had bought 2% of Petrobras shares. At that time, she had paid $330 million for the shares. This was what made her very rich, because, a few years later, Petrobras' value went up through the roof, and she sold 1% of it and still kept the other 1%, which was now worth $3.8 billion. And in the contract that the Hamibo family handed over, they were willing to pay a little over $4 billion for the entirety of her remaining stock. This is not something I can decide for myself, Luan said. Get in touch with me again tomorrow, and we can talk about it. You better think about it. This is the best offer you are going to get in your life. Wagner let out a cold laugh, bellowing without any care, as if Luan didn't accept it, he was going to lose, and not his family. Luan did not respond to Wagner's provocation, because in his mind he was laughing a lot. This was something that did not end up happening in his past life, as those Petrobras shares were handed over to the kidnappers who had kidnapped him. Now, he had the knife and the cheese, he just needed to talk to his mother and cut a piece of that fat cheese that was waiting for them. Luan more than anyone knew that Petrobras shares would lose value very quickly. Currently worth $380 billion, Petrobras shares in a few months would only be worth $100 billion and continue to fall. This would be especially true after the Third Awakening, where different sources of energy were common. Without waiting for Wagner's reaction, Luan got into his car and drove off. Wagner Hamibo stood for a few seconds on the shoulder of the freeway and then chuckled coldly, and a sinister smile formed on his lips. He had played Luan like a fool and knew that in the face of so much money, Luan would most likely not be able to control his greed and would convince his mother to sell her 1% of Petrobras shares. Asterisk. Arriving home, Luan left the car in the garage and walked to the door. Opening it, he entered. Luan went up the stairs and reached the second floor, but before going to his room, he heard his mother's voice. Luan, are you there? Mara walked over to him and said, follow me to the office. Okay. Luan nodded and followed her. Inside the office, there were 2 bookshelves on each side of the room and a large table. Mara sat on the chair behind the table and signaled Luan to sit in front of her. Luan, do you know why I called you here? Mara looked sternly at Luan as she asked him this question. Yes, it's because of Leon, Luan replied. He had returned the cameras back to normal inside the hospital, and the moment the janitor saw the body, the police were called. Mara nodded and smiled coldly, and said with disdain, the police called me and said that Leon was arrested for manslaughter. It seems that it will be difficult for him to be able to clear his name since on security cameras, they saw the man who was killed enter Leon's room until the cameras stopped working, and the man's body was found inside the janitor's closet. Luan said with a cold laugh, hee. He deserves this, and even worse. The guy who died was not some small fish. There are many prisoners in prison who treated him like a brother. Now that Leon is going to jail on suspicion of killing him. Well, if he doesn't protect himself properly and sleep with one eye closed and the other open, he can only expect a tragic end. Then Leon, the retard, called for help, saying he was innocent and as he was the father of my children, I had an obligation to help him and prove his innocence. Mara felt like spitting on the floor in disgust. Mom, I believe you already guessed everything. Yes, that man was killed by me and I planted the prints and caused the cameras to stop working, Luan said. A little anger appeared on his face, but he soon returned to his indifferent expression. The man I killed was the thug behind the men who tried to kidnap Katharina, and he went to the hospital to talk to Leon and planned to kidnap her again. Then it's settled, Mara sighed. It wasn't a very pleasant feeling, knowing that her son has killed someone, however, knowing that he did it to protect his sister. Mara stopped thinking about it and said, okay, you can go to your room. Tomorrow you need to wake up early to attend the press conference and start working as CEO of Dimas Corporation's headquarters. Yes, but before that, look at this. Luan took the folded paper out of his pocket and handed it to Mara. Mara unfolded the paper and began to read. She paused after reading and asked, tell me, what are your thoughts on this proposal? I believe, Mother, that you should sell, Luan answered simply. Is this also due to the apocalypse? Mara asked, tapping her fingers on the wooden table rhythmically. Not exactly. Even without the apocalypse, I would still advise you to sell those shares, Mom, Luan replied. Oh, that's what you're thinking. Mara intertwined her fingers and looked at Luan with interest. Luan looked into his mother's eyes and replied, Mother, in about 2 months, Saudi Arabia will substantially increase its oil production and will start offering discounts of up to 20% on crude oil prices in certain markets. My God. Mara was stunned. She did not doubt her son's words. If this happens, it will indeed be a huge loss for Petrobras. Yes, Mom. The sooner you sell, the better. I was going to talk to you about it at another time. But even I didn't think the Hamibo family would come to me, wanting to make me convince you to sell your shares. It's just laughable. Luan laughed at the Hamibo family's foolishness. Of course, he knew there was no way for the Hamibo family to know that Saudi Arabia would make such a move. If they knew, they would not have been so desperate, willing to pay an even higher value than the market value for 1% of Petrobras shares. Mara chuckled too. She didn't ask how her son had received this information. She actually thought that with her son's current powers, it was even possible that he had some unknown way to find out, but she didn't ask because there were some things that should never be asked. Also, if it were really necessary, Luan would have spoken to her. Mom, I'm going to my room now. Luan got up and said with a gentle smile, you also need to sleep early and not stay up late working. From now on, you can count on me for everything you need. After all, I am your son and I will do my best to help. Okay, son, I'll take your advice. I look forward to seeing what surprises you will be able to bring me from now on. Mara was deeply moved. She took a deep breath as she got up and approached Luan. She then hugged her son before leaving the office. As soon as she left, tears streamed from her eyes. Mara did not want to cry in front of her son, so she left before him. Chapter 58. Press conference. Mara took a shower and put on thin silk pajamas to sleep. Lying on the bed, she felt restless. Many things were happening, and there was still the apocalypse that had very little time left before it would happen. Despite all this, she did not feel unmotivated, but rather she felt some kind of unknown confidence whenever she saw her son. It also made her proud, since before she was always very insecure about her son, who hardly took things seriously. Mara rolled over in bed a few times, until finally, after an hour she fell asleep. Monday, March 8, 2010. Today was an important day for the Dimas family. Like Luan, his mother and sisters woke up early. Ingrid also prepared very well for that day. She had received many tips from Mara, and already knew Luan's agenda. As Luan's personal secretary, she needed to be very responsible and could not fail. Ingrid showered, washing her body and hair, and wore cropped trousers with a braided waist, a beige linen blazer, a white button-down shirt underneath, and a pair of black high-heeled shoes, while her long, Beautiful blonde hair was loose, cascading down her back, halfway down her back. All the clothing she was wearing was what Katharina bought for Ingrid at the Valentino store, before that mess happened. To be honest, Ingrid had never felt so elegant before. She looked at herself in the mirror and believed that she looked much more mature and elegant wearing this outfit. Glancing at the clock, Ingrid saw it was 6:10 a.m. She took a deep breath, walked towards the door, and opened it. Leaving, she looked up and a male figure was fixed in front of her. Luan was there. Attentive eyes, clean and completely imposing appearance, a dark suit that fit him perfectly. Just as Ingrid evaluated Luan, he did the same of her and said, "You look elegant in that outfit. You look very beautiful. I will be counting on your help going forward." Luan patted Ingrid on the head, making her blush furiously. Whether it was because of the words he said or because of the affectionate gesture he made when he patted her on the head, Ingrid didn't know. On the first floor of the mansion, his mother was waiting with Katharina and Christina. Breakfast was served by Mara, and then they all brushed their teeth. "Hurry, the limo is already waiting for us to take you to the company's headquarters," Mara said as soon as they had finished brushing their teeth. Leaving the house, they got into the limo. "Luan, remember that at the press conference you don't have to say much and you won't have any questions," Mara said. "I'm going to announce you as the new CEO of Dimas Corporation's headquarters, so you only need to say a few words." "I understand, Mom," Luan nodded. "I will not say anything unnecessary." "Good," Mara smiled. "Brother, aren't you feeling nervous? I remember that whenever you had to stand in front of a lot of people, you were always nervous," Katharina mentioned. "I'm fine. I'm not the same as before," Luan replied. Yes, I know that, but, well, do your best." Katharina patted him on the shoulder and smiled softly. Ingrid wanted to say a few words of support for him, but she was very agitated in her heart. It was her first job as a secretary and she would start as a personal secretary to Luan, who was the newest CEO of Dimas Corporation. There was no way she wouldn't feel nervous and insecure. She took a deep breath and decided to do her best. While they were chatting, the limo arrived at Dimas Corporation headquarters. Everybody got out of the car. Their arrival drew the attention of many journalists who were present at the scene. Most of them became curious to see Ingrid and Christina together with the Dimas family. Their entourage entered the Dimas Corporation headquarters building. The secretary saw them and said, "Welcome, President Mara, CEO Luan Dimas, and Mrs. Journalists, shareholders, and executives are waiting in the room to start the press conference." "Okay." Mara gave a simple answer and led the way to the room for the press conference. When they entered, everyone inside the room turned and looked in their direction. There were more reporters and press stations than expected. This showed the weight that the CEO of Dimas Corporation represented. In the press room, there was a stage with a large table and 5 seats. Mara and Luan sat in the middle, and the 3 girls sat 2 on the left side and 1 on the right. On the table were 5 microphones. Although it was not Mara's intention to let Ingrid, Christina, and Katharina speak, if necessary, she was prepared to have them answer questions as well. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending the conference for the new CEO of Dimas Corporation's headquarters," Mara said. "Currently, Dimas Corporation has 300,000 employees and manages several sectors. My son is still inexperienced, and this is very new for him. However, that does not mean that he is not capable. I am aware of his capabilities and I am very confident that he will do a good job helping Dimas Corporation reach new heights." From always speaking with such confidence and being seen as a businesswoman with one of the best visionary minds in the business, Mara's brief speech was very persuasive. The audience burst into applause under the stage. After that, it was time for the interview, and the reporters couldn't wait another second. Reporter 1. "Luan Dimas, are you confident in being able to be CEO of the headquarters of Dimas Corporation, which is a giant in the job market in Brazil?" Luan. "I am confident that I can do a good job and not affect it in a negative way." Reporter 2. "Mr. Luan Dimas, you are very young. Why did you decide to become CEO now?" Luan. "My mom has always worked hard, and I want to help her now that I know I can do it." The interview continued on for a while. Not only Luan, but Mara, Katharina, and even Christina and Ingrid were interviewed. Reporter 5. "Miss, can I know your name?" Ingrid Anjos. "Miss Ingrid, how do you know the Dimas family?" Ingrid. "I met Luan Dimas at a difficult time for me. He helped me and even hired me as his personal secretary. I will always be grateful to him and I want to thank Luan for his appreciation." Some had malicious thoughts, seeing how beautiful Ingrid was, but did not dare to expose their thoughts publicly. The next question was about Christina. Reporter 1. This young lady, would she be a relative in the care of Miss Mara Dimas? Mara was already waiting for that question. Mara. Her name is Christina Dimas. A lot of things happened, and I adopted her. Now she is my daughter and sister to Luan Dimas and Katharina. Hearing this, Christina was thrilled. This was a surprise for her since she did not expect her mother to announce publicly that she was her daughter. It made her eyes water, but she forced herself not to cry. This caused a stir in the place. They did not expect that this girl would be lucky to be adopted by the Dimas family. In addition, she was adopted by Mara Dimas, a very capable person who made her name known from a young age and took Dimas Corporation to new heights. Reporter 4. Katharina Dimas, what do you think about this? What do you think about your mother having adopted Christina? The reporter tried to be as careful as possible when asking this question, but it was possible to notice something more in that question, as if he wished for a disagreement to exist. Katharina. I am very happy. I love my little sister and I will always treat her well. Katharina's response took everyone by surprise. They didn't expect her to like this girl so much. And when Luan was asked, he replied, she is my sister, and I will protect her from everyone who tries to hurt her. Because of the news of Christina's adoption, the focus of the interview changed a little. And hearing Luan give this answer, they did not know why, but they felt a strong chill run down their spines. Luan's response also sounded like a warning. It scared these reporters a little when they asked their questions. They also stopped asking about Christina for fear of offending the newest CEO of Dimas Corporation headquarters. The questions continued for a few more minutes until it finally ended. When it was released and became news, it shocked many people across Brazil. After all, Luan Dimas was only 18 years old. And even though he was the son of Mara Dimas, it was unthinkable that such a young man had become CEO of a corporation with 300,000 employees. Chapter 59. First day as CEO. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, the press conference ended and Mara stayed a little longer to introduce the newest boss to everyone. The women in the company went crazy. A young woman of 19 years with dark hair and light brown eyes was the one who threw herself at him the most. She was very beautiful, her curves were perfect, but he showed no reaction and did not give her hope. The girl was called Renata. She giggled awkwardly, but in her heart, she thought he was just nervous because it was his first day at the company. Seriously, could this girl be any more brazen and unashamed? Ingrid rolled her eyes seeing this. After having Luan meet all the employees and be introduced to them, Mara said, son, I am going home with Katharina and Christina. We still need to get stronger. Now the company will be in your hands. Do your best. She hugged her son and kissed his forehead before entering the elevator. After picking up Christina and Katharina, Mara took the elevator again and left. Luan went to his mother's old office and organized it to his liking. Ingrid was in the front room of his. Ingrid rearranged all the paperwork for the day, and she made 2 espressos from the coffee machine. Ingrid then walked back to Luan's office. She left his coffee on the table while Luan typed something on the computer. Ingrid was impressed. Luan's fingers seemed like magic, typing so fast, it looked like he had more than 2 hands. As he was busy, she sat on her chair and remained silent. You can talk about today's schedule. Without looking at her, Luan spoke. We have a meeting now with the executives, lunch with a company, and an afternoon meeting with suppliers, partners, and investors, Ingrid replied. Seeing that he had stopped typing and got up, Ingrid said, getting up, our day will be full. She felt a little nervous since it was the first time she had had so much responsibility, but she was also full of courage and willpower, wanting to do a good job. Meeting room. All executive employees were feeling anxious in Luan's presence. What made them afraid was his indifferent expression and oppressive aura that he gave off, making it difficult for them to breathe. This was not intentional. Luan was like that when he was dealing with serious matters. Automatically, his aura would change and become more powerful, and for ordinary people, it could be difficult to stay in his presence. Ingrid discreetly nudged him and whispered something, and then Luan realized his mistake and retracted his aura. A wave of involuntary sigh resounded. Thanks to that, the executives were able to talk and discuss about the company's projects and proposals. Luan accepted and rejected many proposals with a risk margin and also said his opinion on each proposal. At first, the executives were skeptical, but little by little, they were enchanted by the genius of Luan Dimas. However, There were some who thought that everything was decorated text and not Luan's merit, but the thoughts of Luan Dimas. Asterisk. In the afternoon, there was a meeting with partners and investors. As it was the first day, Luan Dimas just gave them some of his ideas about the projects and proposals and explained them in a very easy way. But upon hearing such theories, all these companions only heard him as if they were drunk and astonished, since there were so many promising proposals and projects. After hearing what he said, a handsome young man who was a partner was almost drooling while looking at Ingrid and asking some questions related to the company's projects. However, it made the meeting room temperature cool, and everyone started shaking from head to toe. The pressure Luan was causing was even worse than when he had been in the meeting with the executives. It was okay if the man had wanted to talk about what he didn't understand about the company, but it was a different story if the main objective was to flirt with Luan's girlfriend. The other, more experienced partners and investors understood this, and they knew it was all the fault of this young man who kept asking questions while drooling, looking at Ingrid. They tried to alert him, but it was in vain. The moment the questions became personal, Ingrid replied, "Please stop asking personal questions. I am not here for a wedding interview. If it is not related to the company, do not talk to me. Girl, I was just trying to be nice, but it seems that you don't know how to recognize the fair gentleman that I am. Why? I wanted to make you more comfortable, taking into account that it seems to be your first day, and yet, you have the courage to criticize me." Hearing what Ingrid said, the hot-tempered young man was agitated. He was never so directly rejected, and moreover, it was by a simple secretary. HMPH. That bitch. When she became the new CEO's secretary, did she let it go to her head? The boy with short blonde hair and green eyes, named Stefan, thought angrily. He vowed to take revenge later. He just did nothing, because he knew he couldn't offend the new CEO. However, everything would change if he did something outside the company. If that's all, let's end this meeting. Luan got up and looked at the young man named Stefan as if he wanted to remember the boy's face, before leaving the room with Ingrid. The moment Luan left, the partners and investors looked at Stefan and sighed. It was very clear to the rest of them that there was something between CEO Luan Dimas and his personal secretary. Everything was going very well, better than they expected, but this lustful boy had to screw it all up. "Excuse me, Luan, I acted hastily," Ingrid said outside the meeting room. "I just couldn't take that annoying kid anymore." "Don't worry, you haven't done anything wrong," Luan said softly and kissed her forehead. Soon after, a strange glow passed through his red eyes. Nobody else knew what he was thinking. Luan returned to his office, and Ingrid stayed in hers. In his room, Luan started to prepare some things, as well as set his aim toward a certain contractor. The rest of the day went smoothly. When the day ended, Ingrid and Luan took a taxi to leave. Asterisk. Welcome back. Mara received them with a gentle smile. "I'm home," Luan replied. When she saw Mara still looking at her, Ingrid replied shyly, "I'm home." "Hee hee. That's better." Mara let out a gentle laugh and said, "You must both be tired. Go take a shower, then go down to dinner. I'm having a banquet to celebrate today." "Okay, Mom. I look forward to it since your food is always the most delicious," Luan said, full of praise. Mara laughed happily hearing this, but huffed and feigned anger. "Stop trying to flatter me, and go take a shower soon." Luan nodded and went up the stairs. Mara, seeing her son going up the stairs, shook her head and murmured happily to herself, "That boy. I'm going, too." Ingrid was silent until she spoke. Chapter 60. That dress is beautiful, it looks great on you. Luan finished bathing. Wearing a white V-neck t-shirt and casual Lacoste sweatpants, he went down the stairs, and arriving at the first floor, he went to the living room. In the living room, he heard the laughter of his mother and Olivia, Elias' mother. Not seeing Elias, Luan used his sensory perception and found him near the pool talking to Katharina and Christina. "Good night, Aunt Olivia," Luan said as soon as he arrived in the living room. "Good night, Luan. Come here, let your aunt give you a hug," Olivia said with a smile as she stood up. Luan came over and hugged Olivia. Moving away, Luan said, "You can keep talking. I'll go to the pool and talk to Elias." "Okay, Luan. Elias missed you a lot. He kept talking about you the entire way here." Olivia laughed when she said this, without even realizing that Luan had known that Elias was also in the pool. She didn't even have time to think that this was strange, but when she thought about it for a moment later, she imagined that Luan just saw him through the second-floor window, so he knew that Elias was in the pool. When he arrived outside the house, Luan found Elias, Christina, and Katharina talking near the jacuzzi and the barbecue, facing the pool while sitting in comfortable chairs around a round table. When Elias saw Luan arrive, he immediately smiled broadly and said out loud, "Luan, why didn't you tell me that you now have got such a lovely little sister? You knew how to hide it well." "Stop it. I didn't say anything because I thought it was better for you to meet her in person." "And what happened?" "Yes." Luan pulled out a chair and sat down next to Christina. He ran a hand over her head and asked softly, "Hey, did he say anything strange?" "Hey, Luan, what do you mean by that?" Elias asked, offended. "Nothing much. I was just worried since you always liked small and cute things," Luan said worriedly, which made Christina blush with embarrassment. "Look at my little sister, isn't she adorable and cute? With her being like that, I should be concerned if someone like you approaches her, yes?" "Yeah, I guess you're right." Elias nodded, but then he realized something was wrong with what Luan said, and frowned. "Wait a moment there, I'm not a danger. Stop talking as if I'm going to kidnap her." True, you're not going to kidnap her. But not because of not wanting to, but because you couldn't," Luan scoffed, leaving Elias confused. How come he couldn't kidnap a little girl if he wanted to? Not that he actually wanted to do that, but. "Don't think too much on it. You'll soon understand," Luan said mysteriously. "Stop the theater, you two. Can't you see you're scaring my little sister?" Katharina said and pulled Christina into her embrace as the older sister protecting her younger sister. Elias scratched his head awkwardly and said, "Katharina, aren't you using this as an excuse to take advantage and hug your little sister?" Quote. "Of course not. I'm, just genuinely concerned for her," Katharina stammered when caught, but she didn't admit anything. "See, doesn't she look scared?" "Yes, but isn't it because you're hugging her too tightly?" Luan said while trying to get Christina out of Katharina's embrace. "Tisk. Go on over to your girlfriend and stop meddling in my relationship with my little sister," Katharina snorted playfully. Ingrid, who had just arrived outside the house and intended to walk towards them, froze when she heard what Katharina said. Her face immediately turned apple red until her neck turned a little red as well. Katharina saw Ingrid at the door and said aloud, "Sister-in-law, come over here and take my brother away. He keeps intimidating me." She pouted in an attempt to look like she was hurt. Ingrid was wearing a simple, elegant dress with a slit down the front. She tied her hair in a versatile bun and wore a black 2-inch high-heeled set of sandals. There were few moments that had left Luan speechless when seeing Ingrid. This was one of them. "Luan, dry your drool," Katharina said when she saw her brother's stunned reaction. She laughed secretly. Luan pretended not to hear Katharina, got up, and went over to Ingrid. Holding her trembling hand and giving her a kiss on the cheek, he then looked into her eyes and said, "That dress is beautiful. It looks great on you." "Thanks." Ingrid ducked her head and thanked him timidly. Luan took her hand and brought her in front of Elias. "Ignore Katharina. Let me introduce you. This is my best friend, Elias Levy Cardozo. Elias, this is my girlfriend, Ingrid Anjos." Ingrid felt nervous when being introduced as Luan's girlfriend. She smiled shyly and said, "Nice to meet you." "It's my pleasure," Elias said with a silly smile and ended up saying too much. "The sister-in-law is very beautiful and also very polite, different from that old girl which Luan liked." "Are you talking about Carol?" Ingrid took an interest in this subject. "Yes. Did you know her? Had Luan mentioned her to you?" Elias was a little surprised that Ingrid knew about Carol. "I saw her once at a mall," Ingrid replied. "Oh, I see. She's a cheap girl, isn't she?" Clearly, Elias did not like Carol at all. Well, she looked at Luan and saw that he didn't seem offended to call the girl he had liked cheap, and so she said, How can I say it? She looks like that sort of manipulative and unfaithful girl." She still remembered Carol's reaction to being seen with that other man. Speaking of Carol, Ingrid involuntarily remembered her sister. If one were to compare the two, they were quite similar. "Ingrid, are you really going to ignore me?" Katharina asked. "No, of course not, sorry. I ended up being distracted," Ingrid said, apologizing. Hee. Don't worry. I know it's my smelly brother's fault. Okay. Come here, sit next to me, I'll tell you all about Carol if you want. I went to the same school with her, so I know a lot about her, Katharina said invitingly. But her real intention was to move Ingrid away from her brother's side to see what his reaction would be. Okay. Ingrid answered reluctantly, letting go of Luan's hand, and went to Katharina and sat on the other side of her. "Ingrid, you look beautiful." Christina, who had been quiet until now, took the initiative to praise Ingrid. Thank you, cutie. You also looked very beautiful in that floral dress. Ingrid smiled as she looked at Christina. Hee hee. Thanks. Christina, who was not used to receiving praise, was very happy. Today in particular, she felt blessed, especially when her two older siblings fought over her. Of course, she understood that it was all a joke, but even so, it filled her heart with happiness. Luan, I am very happy for you. Your girlfriend looks like a great person, and I see that she likes you a lot, Elias said sincerely. He treated Luan as his blood brother, and knowing that he was doing great, made him very happy. I'm lucky to have her, Luan nodded. Quote. Ingrid, who was talking to Katharina and Christina, blushed when she heard what Luan said to Elias. Sister-in-law, do you have a fever? Seeing Ingrid's red face, Katharina pretended not to know why she was like this and put her hand on Ingrid's forehead to measure her temperature. Boys, girls, come in, dinner is ready. Suddenly, Mara's voice came. Chapter 61. Sparring. Wiping her mouth with a napkin, Mara said with a smile, Luan, today I went to Hamibo Corporation headquarters. By your smile, I believe everything went well, yes. Luan looked at her with great interest when he asked. Was it good? You tell me, Mara said with a proud smile. When I got there, I said how reluctant I was to sell Petrobras shares, and I was only doing it because they managed to convince you and that you kept asking me to sell, and guess what? Did they offer a higher value? When Luan asked this, his mother chuckled. Exactly. They offered me 4.1 billion, but your mother here is not just anybody, how could I just accept it? I spent more than an hour saying the benefits of Petrobras shares and when I pretended that I would think for a few more days. Hee hee. Mara laughed and said, they offered me 4.2 billion. Of course, I noticed it was the maximum bid they were willing to make, so, reluctantly, I sold the shares to them. Olivia and the rest hearing this were amazed. After all, $4.2 billion was a very high number. As expected, my mom is the best. Luan raised his thumb up. He knew that his mother was a genius in entrepreneurship, but sometimes he thought he underestimated his mother's genius. As expected of our mother, right? Katharina emphasized our when speaking. Yes, our mother, Luan agreed. Luan and Katharina's conversation delighted Mara and everyone laughed out loud. Olivia looked at Christina and then at Mara and said, Mara, I saw at the press conference that you had adopted this beautiful girl. To be honest, I would have loved to adopt her myself. Too bad you arrived first. Oh, instead of adopting Christina, Aunt can become her godmother, Katharina suggested. She believes it is a good idea since Christina did not yet have a godmother or godfather. I would be happy with that. Olivia smiled gently as she looked at Christina. Hello, beautiful girl, what do you think about this? Do you want to be my goddaughter? Christina looked at Luan and then at Mara, and seeing that they left the decision to her, Christina took a deep breath and nodded, yes. It was all very new to her, but Christina had recently created a kind of perception and knew when a person was having bad thoughts towards her, and she knew that Olivia had no bad thoughts against her. Her charisma and gentle smile made Christina want to get closer to this woman. That's great. Olivia put her hands together and smiled widely. Elias, who saw this, said, Little sister, since you are going to become my mother's goddaughter, you can start calling me a big brother, just like you call Luan, our cousin Elias is also good. Okay. Big brother, Christina said in a jovial voice. Hearing this, Elias almost passed out from her cuteness. He wanted to squeeze Christina's cheeks, but he didn't dare for fear of scaring her. They continued to eat and talk. Finishing up, Luan said, as soon as we get some rest, let's go to the second floor. I have something I want to show to Aunt Olivia and Elias. They finished resting in the living room while watching television. One of the news bulletins caught Luan's attention a little. It was about the mysterious disappearance of several people from different countries. In addition, there was also some news showing footage of a dimensional crack. It was just as before in his past life, although the dimensional cracks deceived human perception, they were unable to hide from a camera. For Elias and Olivia, this was just another false news report, something created to generate an audience, but for Luan and the girls, this was worrying. They were already aware of the existence of dimensional cracks. On the second floor, Luan brought them to the gym. Initially, Elias and his mother Olivia found it strange, since they remembered that there had been a lot of training equipment in this room, but then something else didn't seem right, since they felt a heavenly sensation when breathing inside that room. It was like they were being surrounded by nature with its fresh air, and it made them feel comfortable. Christina, have a sparring match against Elias, Luan said, looking at her while rubbing her head. Then looked at Elias. Elias, my little sister started learning martial arts and she wanted to find a good opponent to see how strong she is now. You can train a little with her, yeah. But, I'm afraid of hurting him. Christina knew she was no longer a normal person. Her strength exceeded the strength of 9 ordinary men by this time. Little sister, you don't have to worry. Elias, who heard this, thought it was funny, but he still answered seriously, I am very strong and look at my muscles, they are all real. He posed. Besides, you don't have to worry about me hurting you. I'm in the army, and I'm used to controlling my strength to train new recruits, and I've also taught fighting classes before. Big brother. Christina did not answer Elias, but instead she looked at Luan asking for his opinion. It's okay. Just try to control your strength and use only 1/3 of your strength. That will be enough for you to be able to train with him, Luan said softly. Okay. I'm going to try my best. Christina closed her little hands into fists and was now encouraged. She knew that this was also a test that Luan had prepared for her. Luan knew that if Christiana was unable to control her strength, later it would be a problem, especially when she started attending school and, without wanting to so, might end up hurting a child. Elias, don't use too much force against her. If you hurt her, even though you're already too big for me to take over my knee, you are still my child. I will hit your ass until it swells, Olivia said menacingly. Hearing this, Elias winced. It looked like he had been through something like this before, which reminded him of whatever it was, and it made his body tremble with fear. I know, Elias murmured, as expected of Aunt Olivia, so fierce. Katharina applauded, approving what she had said. Christina stood in front of Elias. She copied the position of the body technique Luan taught her and was in a fighting stance. Elias, seeing this, was amazed. He could not see any flaws in Christina's fighting stance. Who trained her? He wondered. Here I go, big brother, Christina warned as she moved at him. She moved very fast despite her small legs, which gave Elias no time to react, and when Christina's little fist went towards him, Elias thought quickly and with the palm of his hand, made Christina's hand miss the blow. Christina did not stop and attacked again. Due to her small size compared to Elias, she was having a hard time landing her strikes since Elias always used the palm of his hand to deflect and attack with the other hand. However, she was also quick and dodged in time. Olivia might not have fought, but she had seen her son and her husband train several times and knew that this girl was incredible. Big brother, I'll be a little more serious. Be careful, Christina warned, thinking of using a little more than 1/3 of her strength. Now Elias didn't dare to underestimate her. Although he didn't know how strong and fast such a small girl could be, he couldn't deny that if he were just a little careless, he would be knocked out by her precise attacks. Chapter 62. Are you really my mother? As soon as Elias saw that Christina was stronger than he imagined and could be more serious, he immediately launched a series of strong punches. Christina, who increased her strength to just over 1/3, dodged all the punches that came towards her perfectly. She also noticed how excellent the technique's movements were. Queen Cobra's body. It was like Luan had told her before. As long as she mastered all 36 moves, she would be very strong when fighting hand to hand. This was mainly because this technique left a woman's body more flexible than normal, being able to move very fast and also dodge all types of blows. As soon as Christina decided to attack, she acted fast and came very close to Elias and punched Elias in the stomach with of her strength. Elias felt as if he had been hit by a kick from a horse. He flew for 2 meters before crashing into the house wall. With a loud noise, the mark of Elias' body was indented in the wall, almost breaking it. Seeing this, Olivia was very surprised and worried. Luan approached Elias and put his hand on his shoulder and used his chi to help him heal, although not to 100%. It was still enough to make Elias just feel some pain, but nothing too serious. Like, what's going on here? That girl, how can she be so strong? Olivia, who was silent, cried out in disbelief. She didn't make any more noise as she saw that her son was fine, however, that didn't stop her from being shocked. After all, her son was almost 90 kilos and even so, he was thrown by a punch that came from the fist of a girl so small, how could she not be shocked? Luan. Elias also looked at Luan for an answer. It was the first time that he had seen such a strong and abnormal girl at the same time. Even an army major wouldn't have that kind of strength. Okay. This is it. Do you remember the news about the mysterious crack in the newspaper? Luan had already spoken to his mother and sisters, and Ingrid and they knew he was not going to tell the exact truth. However, he would still let them know a few things. Yes, I remember. Elias nodded and waited for him to continue talking. So, I got into this mysterious crack by chance and got an old technique that strengthens the body. It may seem surreal, but the truth is that after training with this technique, we are all several times stronger than ordinary humans. Luan explained some truths, mixed with lies. He couldn't just tell everyone that he knew what he told his mother and sisters, and Ingrid. It was better not to know so much, and also not to know that he had more than one technique. Although he wanted to help his friend, there was a limit that he could help. In addition, it was already a huge advantage for Elias to discover and learn the technique he intended to teach. And when the awakening happened, he could teach even more. However, for the time being, he couldn't do much, or else he could end up doing more harm than good, mainly because Elias's family was a military family. If Elias's father, who was an army general who was just below the position of marshal, if he knew, he was able to put the army's obligation above all else and would try to force Luan to hand over the techniques he had to the army. Of course, if Luan refused to deliver, it was almost impossible to force him. However, this could create a friction between him and Elias' father, which was not the result that Luan wanted. After all, they did not know what to expect, and even if he told some things, it would not change much. The idea was to share the technique of creating body foundation through the game he was creating, just as he planned, just so the humans of planet Earth would get stronger and be able to defend themselves against invaders. How can something like this exist? This is really serious. Are you kidding me? Elias was skeptical about it. It was too unreal to believe such a thing. Why would I lie? Luan asked nonchalantly. If you don't believe me, fight my sister or fight me. If you do, you will understand the difference in strength. In fact, when you fought Christina, she only used a maximum of 1/3 of her strength. Impossible. Was she that strong and didn't even use all her strength? Elias fell on his ass onto the floor. He then went to the corner of the room and crouched with empty eyes as he started to draw circles on the floor, feeling depressed. He was 19 years old, and had been training his body since he was 7 years old, and even so, he was unable to make a 14-year-old girl fight seriously against him and still lost against her. How could he not be depressed? Stop all the drama. A man as big as you getting so depressed just because he lost so badly to a 14-year-old girl, so much that you couldn't even fight back. There's no reason for so much drama, Olivia said harshly. Although she was very shocked by this news, she recovered quickly. She had a strong mentality, and even though she didn't believe 100% in what she heard, she was still willing to try to understand. How can you say that to your son? Are you really my mother? Elias started to cry. Wah, wah. This boy. Olivia sighed and said, don't mind him. Go on, explain more about it. I still can't convince myself that this is true. Auntie, it's true. I can show you. Katharina took a step forward, and walked over to Elias and took him by the collar of his shirt and lifted him up like a simple potato sack. It was surprising that she was able to raise a man as big as Elias so casually. Although it was hard to believe, what Olivia saw was real. Elias also stopped crying and became disbelieving. With just one hand, Katharina with her thin arm, which looked like it would break if squeezed with a little force, had managed to lift him. My God, I must be dreaming. I need to wake up. Elias hit his head against the wall, and he was dizzy. However, it was not enough to wake him up from this reality. When he was about to hit his head on the wall again, Luan stopped him. Are you trying to kill yourself? But, is this really real? Elias looked like a fool. He felt the pain in his head go away very quickly, but little did he know that Luan was transferring some of his chi to help him recover faster. Oh, the pain in my head is gone. I helped you recover, Luan said nonchalantly. How did you do it? Elias asked. He didn't see Luan do anything abnormal, nor did he even give him medicine to take, so how? This is even more difficult to explain. Just imagine that I gave you a medicine for you to take without you noticing, and that's it. Luan was too lazy to explain chi to him. Elias managed to calm down and asked, okay, let me see if I understand. There is a technique for training the body, and using this technique I can strengthen myself and be several times stronger, is that right? Yes, exactly that, Luan said. I am saying all this to you and your aunt because I am concerned that these mysterious cracks will become a bigger problem in the future. After all, in the mysterious crevice I entered, there were mutant animals that were several times stronger than the animals we know. Furthermore, I believe that intelligent life exists in at least one of these mysterious cracks, and if these beings invade our planet. If that is true, it would be a real problem because being stronger and faster is a huge advantage. Even using weapons on our side, they could dodge the shots and kill easily. Those who are faster and stronger will be the victor in the end. And if they're smart, the danger triples. Elias began to think rationally. Despite the previous shock, he was not stupid. If not, he would not have become a captain at such a young age. Now you understand. Okay. I'm going to teach you and Aunt Olivia the technique, and you can find out for yourself if I'm telling the truth, Luan said. Chapter 63. New Breakthrough. Initially, Olivia was not interested in learning some fighting technique, but then, Mara said, "Ah yes, Sister Olivia, the reason why my skin looks better, it's all thanks to this technique." Hearing this, it was too seductive for a woman to be able to resist, especially a woman at Olivia's age, who had started to worry even more. If she became more beautiful, wouldn't her husband become a beast in bed? Thinking about it, she blushed with excitement and willingly agreed to train as well. Luan also said that he found some rare pills that had helped him get stronger faster. He also said he had 2 left over and would share with them. Elias was so touched that he tried to kiss Luan and was promptly kicked back on his ass. "Stop your bullshit, I don't swing that way." Elias stood up, rubbing his hand on his ass, but he still had a silly smile on his face. "I don't rock that way either. I was just very moved." "Okay, shall we start training now?" "Yes, you and Aunt Olivia can sleep here at our home today, and train here tonight," Luan said. Mara agreed. "What do you say, Sister Olivia? Are you going to spend the night here?" "Okay, I'm just going to make one call first." Olivia accepted the hospitality and called her home to say she was not coming back that evening. After the call, she returned to the living room and said, "All done. I'm going to get 2 guest rooms prepared for you two," Katharina said in a good mood and left. Usually, she didn't do this kind of legwork, even washing dishes she didn't like to do, but now that she had started training, she felt full of energy and was constantly looking to spend it on something. "I will help." Christina offered to help and left with Katharina. "Okay. Pay close attention. Although they seem simple, the 9 movements I am going to teach are very difficult and must be done with precision in order to have a greater effect," Luan said slowly. "Okay." Olivia and Elias nodded in unison. For the next half hours, Luan taught the mother and son the movements of body technique. "Okay. That's right. Now continue to make those same movements in sequence. When they get tiring, I will teach a recitation of a mantra that is used to strengthen everything that has been trained while meditating," Luan told them. Luan and Ingrid hadn't trained yet, but they couldn't do theirs in front of Olivia and Elias since their movements were different and much more complex. So Luan then invited Ingrid to go up with him to his room, which was more spacious, and to train there for now. Yes. Although she knew that the two would only train, she ended up letting her imagination run wild. Arriving at his room, Luan said, "It is better for you to change out of your dress, since with this dress it will be difficult to train." "Wait, I'm not ready yet." Ingrid blushed furiously. Have you got me wrong? I mean, you should put on another outfit, since wearing a dress to training is not appropriate." The moment Ingrid heard this, she was very embarrassed. "It's your fault, you idiot." She punched weakly and said before running off, "You keep talking ambiguously. I got it wrong. I said something wrong." Luan remembered what he said to her, and realized that in fact, what he said could be misinterpreted. Asterisk. Capitol Police Station. Inside a cell, Leon Becker was shaking with fear. "I'm here for Leon Becker. I'm your lawyer, Miranda Miller." A woman wearing a dark blue suit and black slacks arrived at the police station. Her face was expressionless, while her hair was tied up in a high bun. "Okay, you can see your client, but you can't take him out of here," said the deputy. After all, they had Leon Becker's fingerprints on the victim's neck. "No, I will get him out of here and prove that he is not to blame." The woman remained expressionless when she placed a folder on the delegate's desk and pulled a document out of the folder. Initially, the deputy was skeptical, thinking that this woman had taken the wrong medicine, but when he started reading, he started to sweat. He did not expect Leon Becker's family to be so radical. "Okay, you can take him out." Suddenly, the deputy felt very tired. He turned to a policeman and said, "Go with that miss and open Leon Becker's cell and remove the handcuffs." "Yes." The police officer nodded and left with Miranda Miller. Outside in a red Mercedes, Leon cracked his neck and said, "Thanks, I couldn't even sleep in that rotten place." Glad I finally got out of there. Don't worry, I'm just doing my caution. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. A speeding car overtook the red light and hit lawyer Miranda Miller's car just as she was about to hit the highway. The impact was so great, running the entire length of the side of the car, that it caused the car to roll over. Somebody call an ambulance. Call the police too. My God, the car is on fire. Quick, does anyone have a fire extinguisher? I have one. Even saying that, the man did not dare to go there and put out the fire for fear of the car exploding suddenly. Dredge, let me do this. An apparently courageous girl, 18 to 19 years old, took the man's fire extinguisher and headed toward the car and started to extinguish the fire. After putting out the fire, the young woman was applauded for her heroic act, and then the crowd saw the young woman open the car door and help a man out of the car. Leon Becker was still conscious. He saw the beautiful girl who had saved him, with light brown hair and green eyes, with very big breasts. Then he passed out. Siren. Asterisk. The ambulance is here. The police are here too. Quickly, the man who ran the red light is trying to escape. From inside the car that hit the lawyer's car, a bloody man got out of his car and tried to escape, but was easily surrounded and paralyzed. The young woman also went to the driver's side and opened the door, and was about to help the woman out, but was stopped by a man from the ambulance car. Leave it to us now. Thanks for the help you did, the man said. The young woman was silent for a while, then nodded, okay. Secretly, the young woman saw the name of the hospital that this ambulance came from, before getting into her car and leaving. Asterisk. Luan started training with Ingrid in his room. Just a few hours later, they returned to the gym, as it was better to meditate there. The moment Luan started to meditate, his body started to glow. And a white aura surrounded him. He tried his best and felt his power increased. Bang. Asterisk. Peak of the corporal foundation. Luan murmured in his heart. Although far from enough, that in itself was very good, with the strength of his body alone he was 40 times stronger than an ordinary man. With that increasing, now if he used his chi, he would be 55 times stronger. Luckily, Elias and Olivia had already finished meditating and went out to talk to Mara and didn't see the white aura coming out of Luan's body. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to explain, especially the marks caused by it on the floor. Better put down a rug to hide it for now. Ingrid, who had also finished meditating, suggested. Yes. Luan went out and brought a big rug and placed it over the marks caused by his aura. It also made him think that he should create a defensive formation. Chapter 64. Night Visit. After showering and staying in his room, Luan began to create a new type of pill. It was called the blood pill. This pill helped in blood circulation and also improved the speed of cultivation. For the next 2 hours, Luan created 25 blood pills. Storing the pills in an empty bottle, Luan put everything away and took another shower. Returning wrapped in a bath towel, Luan put on sleepwear, being just short shorts. He didn't like to wear a t-shirt when he was sleeping, so he didn't wear it. Before going to sleep, he picked up his laptop and started working on the game he was developing to teach cultivation. It was necessary for him to configure some codes and install administrator commands for his main account. He also needed to do some last-minute bug testing and determine the full system requirements to be able to play the game. Half an hour later. Talk. Asterisk. Luan. Ingrid's soft voice came as a whisper from the other side of the door. Coming. Luan placed the laptop on the table beside the bed and got up from the bed. He walked towards the door, unlocked it, and opened it. Ingrid stared him up and down and said, "I'm sorry to bother you so late." When she looked back up, her face went all red. She saw that Luan was without a shirt, showing his perfect body, and his beautiful six-pack that made her heart race. "No problem, I was still awake," Luan said. I know. I saw that the light in your room was on, so. Well, I also heard the sound of keys, and I assumed you were working on something or playing the game." Ingrid was very shaken. She looked at the floor, unable to look at Luan's beautiful body. "Something happened. Or did you come because?" Luan drew a suspense, not finishing what he was going to say. Ingrid said quickly, "It's not what you were thinking. I just couldn't sleep. Like, I'm feeling uncomfortable, so, something is wrong with my body. Not wrong. I just feel uncomfortable. I don't really know what it is, and I figured that maybe you knew, so don't let your imagination run wild." "Oh, but I just thought you couldn't sleep, and I wanted to talk a little until I was sleepy." Luan said seriously but secretly laughed in his heart. He didn't know why, but seeing Ingrid's reaction made him very happy and made him want to tease her more and more. Ah, did I get it wrong again? Ingrid froze. She almost cried. Was she becoming a pervert who kept thinking dirty things? Easy, easy, don't cry, it's my fault. Luan hugged her and realized his mistake. He shouldn't tease her that much. I was teasing you. I went too far, didn't I? No need to cry. Here, let me kiss you. Luan wrapped his hands around Ingrid's back and kissed her cherry lips. It was really magical. It was just him kissing her, and all the worries and conflicts she was having in her mind were erased. She got intoxicated. Her body shook a little in Luan's arms. Better. Luan separated his lips from hers and asked. Not yet. She wrapped her arms around Luan's neck and kissed him. My God, what did I just see? Katharina had felt thirsty in the middle of the night and went to get a glass of water. When she returned, she saw this whole scene. Her face was all red. Luan had already noticed his sister, but it seems that Ingrid was so shaken that she didn't notice. Come, let's go in first, so I can see if I can find out what's wrong with your body. Luan said, pulling her into his room and closing the door. Ingrid was still intoxicated by the sensation of the kiss on her lips. She looked at Luan with her blue eyes in a dreamy way. Sit on the floor. I'll see if I can find out what's wrong with your body, Luan told her, making her wake up from her drunken state. Okay. Ingrid replied and sat on the floor, just as Luan asked. Luan stood behind her and put his 2 hands on her back. He then channeled his chi and started to run it through the veins of her body. A few minutes later, Luan discovered what was causing the problem. Because your cultivation has grown so fast, it is causing discomfort in your body, Luan said softly. Close your eyes and perform the cultivation technique that you received from Emperor Shen. I will now be helping you to stabilize your cultivation. Okay, I'll do my best. Ingrid closed her eyes while controlling her breathing and then exercised the cultivation technique. A red aura left Ingrid's body which looked aggressive, unlike Luan's white aura, which was calm and serene. Luan used his mind and induced his chi to enter Ingrid's body and help her control the out-of-control energy. The moment that Ingrid's blood energy felt Luan's energy, she felt overwhelmed. Luan's chi was not common, and however special the blood chi may have been, it couldn't go against Luan's chi. It would have been denied, that is, destroyed forever. This made the process of stabilizing Ingrid's blood chi faster. Just 10 minutes later, Luan said, it is done. See now if there is any discomfort. There's no discomfort. I'm fine now. In fact, I'm feeling great. Ingrid turned and hugged him as she said, thanks Luan. You're welcome. Luan then provoked her, if you really want to thank me, you can give me a kiss. Okay. Ingrid did not deny his provocation and accepted without thinking twice and kissed him, almost sitting on his lap. After her lips parted, Ingrid said in a mosquito voice, I'm going now, good night. Yes, good night, sleep well. Luan smiled as he helped her up and said goodbye to her with a quick kiss. Luan lay in bed and saw that it was almost 4 in the morning and decided to get some sleep. Before that, he picked up the laptop and finalized a series of codes for a program that was almost finished. After that, he turned off the laptop and put it on the table. Lying on the bed, he slept. March 9, 2010 Tuesday. In the kitchen, Luan and his family had breakfast. Elias and Olivia also with them stayed for breakfast. Luan, this is really incredible. In just one day I already see a difference. Olivia was all smiling. She didn't even wear heavy makeup, but she already felt beautiful. She was particularly happier than Elias with this new discovery. Brother Luan, is it okay if I tell my dad this? Elias asked, cautiously. It's fine. You can teach him it as well. However, can you ask him to keep it a secret? Luan said, I intend to let the army use this technique, but not right now. I am going to speak to my grandfather and I want to do something else before as well, and this technique will be my bargain to get what I want. I understand. You are now a CEO. It is normal to think about profiting from things. Elias was not a fool. He understood that Luan would not simply hand this technique over to the army for free, and even if they wanted to force him to hand it over, he would have to see if they were capable. Not only because Luan was strong, but because Elias didn't know how strong Luan actually was. But Luan's grandfather was the only marshal alive. Even though he was already retired, his credibility was no less than that of the president. Luan, your aunt just hopes you do your best and don't let your mother down. Also, do not take too long to do what you plan to do, because if these cracks, whatever they are, continue to appear and there are invaders on our planet, it's better for us to be prepared, Olivia hugged Luan and said. Yes, Aunt, I know what to do. I not only intend to make the army strong but also ordinary people. Wait just a little while. This month you will understand my true intentions, Luan said with a smile. Okay. I trust you and I know that you are a good guy. Olivia smiled and said, I'm not going to take your time anymore. I know you have to go to work soon, do you not? Elias, would you be willing to go to the company with me? On the way, there is something I want to talk to you about. Luan looked at him and asked. Go with him, son, I can go back alone, said Olivia. Okay. I will, Elias nodded. Chapter 65. Giant Spider. Mara, who had gone to the gym, saw the damage that had apparently happened and sighed. She called a remodeling company to fix it later in the evening. Mom, in the afternoon are we going out? Katharina, beside her, asked with bright eyes. It has been a while since I went out with my mother to shop, and we can also take Christina to get to know the neighborhood better. Yes, it is not a bad idea. Let's go after lunch. But for that, we need to train in the morning. Mara agreed with the idea. 8 hours later. Mom, wait a minute, I forgot my purse, Katharina said as she ran up the stairs. That girl. Mara didn't mind waiting and smiled at Christina beside her. How was it? Are you doing well in training? Yes, Mom. I feel stronger and stronger, Christina said with a smile full of joy. She was very happy to be able to go out with her mother and sister. I'm glad to hear this. Mara crouched down and kissed Christina's small face and smiled. This made Christina's face flush with happiness. I'm back. Ready to go. Katharina returned with a red Valentino bag. Yes, get in the car. Mara closed the door when they left and went to the garage. Her car was a silver Mercedes. It wasn't her most expensive car, but it was the only one she had that was for more than 2 people. Leaving the garage, taking the beach road, and heading towards the highway, Mara was traveling at almost 50 kilometers per hour. Mother, let's go too. Katharina's eyes widened, and she shouted, Mother, watch out. Christina screamed, a crack is opening. Mara saw it too, but was unable to avoid it in time. The dimensional gap opened right in front of the car. Even when she turned, trying to miss hitting it, it was too late. Whoosh. Asterisk. The car skidded as soon as it crossed the dimensional crack, and it slid. Now, Mara and her 2 daughters had found themselves in a desert. As the car kept moving, it was sinking into the sand, mainly it was forced to stop when the car pushed up against a small hill of sand. We ended up in a desert. And look, is there something coming our way? Christina screamed in alarm. She, as the strongest of the 3, felt compelled to protect the others. Christina got out of the car and saw a scorpion. No, it was actually a giant spider, almost 2 meters long. My God. Mom, I'm scared. Katharina shivered when she saw that spider running towards them. It was very disgusting and scary. Only after did she notice that Christina had courageously gotten out of the car and went towards the 2-meter spider. Christina. No. Mara cried out in alarm. She opened the car door and got out as well. Mom, it's okay. Let me protect you. Christina said with strong conviction. She jumped in the air and spun, landing with the heel of her foot towards the head of the giant spider. Whoosh. Asterisk. The giant spider, seeing this, used its 8 legs and jumped sideways, dodging her attack. Then the giant spider launched a web ball towards Christina. Mara threw her shoe in the direction of the launched web and managed to stop it in time. It also caused the giant spider to change its target and run instead towards Mara. Although feeling nervous, Mara would not let her daughter take the risk of her life and stay put. Mara saw the spider coming towards her and took off her other shoe to make it easier to move and ran towards the giant spider. Katharina, who was before trembling with fear, seeing this, was anxious. She also got out of the car after getting the extinguisher from under the seat. Although not very useful, it was better than nothing. She ran towards the giant spider, despite all her dread. Christina fell to the sandy floor, having missed the target of her kick. Getting up, she kicked off the ground, running towards the giant spider. Don't intimidate my mother, she screamed. Very close, she kicked hard into a pile of sand and threw a lot of the sand in the direction of the spider's head, intending to mow it. The moment the giant spider closed all its eyes, Mara and Katharina took up positions around the giant spider. While Mara punched the giant spider's head with all her strength, Katharina used the fire extinguisher to hit the front legs of the giant spider. Bang! Asterisk. Geek. The giant spider screamed strangely, in a horrifying way, and threw spits of green goo. Probably poison. Mara and Katharina went white with fear and moved away. Christina approached on the right side and jumped and punched the side of the spider. Christina's fist, although small, had a half-ton of force behind it. Boom. Asterisk. The impact of Christina's punch sent the giant spider flying in the air, being thrown from a few meters away. Go on. Don't stop. She hasn't died yet, Christina shouted. She ran in the direction that the giant spider had fallen and jumped into the air. She made the same attempt as before, spinning, and going with her heel towards the back of the giant spider. With the extinguisher leaking, and dented, Katharina also ran towards the giant spider, dodging the puddle of green goo. Mara ran as well, dodging the puddle of possible poison. While the giant spider was down, Mara, Christina, and Katharina attacked non-stop from all directions, hitting the giant spider. Okay. It stopped moving. Mara sat on the floor, feeling very tired. Finally, Katharina, who was exhausted not only physically but also mentally, fell on her back in the sand and was unwilling to get up for a while. I know they're tired, but I don't think it's a good idea to wait here. Let's get back to the car first, Christina said. She was still standing, fully alert. She felt an obligation to protect her mother and sister. Of course, she knew that the victory against this giant spider was thanks to the teamwork of the three. If it were just her, Christina would have become giant spider food at the time that she was unable to dodge the web. Yes, you are right. Another thing is the bloody smell of this giant spider. It is possible that it'll attract other beasts, said Mara, getting up. It would be nice if Luan were here. Katharina knew that her brother was powerful. If he had been together with them, they wouldn't have to worry so much. Yes, even Ingrid would be nice, since she is about as strong as Luan, Mara said with a sigh. Mother, big sister, don't worry. I will protect you, Christina said with a strong fighting spirit. What are you talking about? Of course, we can't allow that. Despite being stronger than the two of us, I still won't let you fight alone. Mara said, seriously. Yes, little sister, you can trust us, Katharina said, although we are not powerful, we are still not common. As long as we work as a team, we can leave here alive. Yes, Christina felt touched, but she still planned to do her best to protect Mara and Katharina. Inside the car, the three sat down while resting. It is not a good idea to drive the car, as the noise of the engine will draw unwanted attention. But we can pull the car. There are ropes inside the trunk, and it would be useful to have the car if necessary, Mara said. Yes, pulling the car will not be difficult for us. And if we find something of value, we can put it in the trunk. Katharina remembered that Luan said that in these places there are almost always things of value. And even the remains of mutated beasts had a high value. I am quite strong. If you want, you can stay in the car while I pull with the rope, Christina suggested. We cannot accept that either. If we do, we will take turns, Mara said. She couldn't just let her daughter do the legwork, she also couldn't suggest doing it alone, since she knew she wasn't that strong, but if they did things in turns, it wouldn't end up being that difficult. Okay, but then mom and big sister can do this together, and I can do it alone. I understand why we must work together, but for now, I am the one with more strength. It would be more feasible for me to make more effort since it takes me longer to get tired, said Christina. Okay, but don't try too hard. When you feel tired, mom and I will do it, Katharina relented. She saw that no matter what they said, Christina would insist on working harder. She realized that Christina felt compelled to protect them.